how and why to cure meat at home without fear, and I mean specifically fear of nitrates. I'm Brad Marshall, the author of Fire in a Bottle and the proprietor of Firebrand Meats Low PUFA Pork. So curing meat means adding nitrates to the meat. There's no getting around it. That's what it means. We have different kinds of nitrates. In bacon and ham, we're usually adding something called sodium nitrite. That's the most common. Where do these nitrates come from and these nitrates come from? So the roots of leguminous plants have nitrogen-fixing bacteria that live on them. The air is mostly nitrogen gas, and these plants take nitrogen out of the air, and these bacteria fix it. Then there are other bacteria that turn it into ammonium, and other bacteria that turn it into nitrites, other bacteria turn it into nitrates, and those nitrates are taken up by plants, and the plants use those nitrates to make protein. So without nitrates, plants can't make protein. Nitrates are one of the basic building blocks of all life, and they're also recycled via rabbit manure and mushrooms, as you can see here. And humans have been using nitrite and nitrate to cure meat since at least 850 BC. It says this is the first instance in which we can be sure nitrates were used during the curing process, according to eatcuredmeat.com. Nitrates used to be gotten since the 13th century in Spain, were gotten from these salt caves. So if you wanted to cure meat, you would buy something called saltpeter, which came from the this literally means coves of nitrate salt. Nitrate is also used to make gunpowder. So this was a crucial resource. So in Germany, they had these nitraries where they would build these piles of manure and rotting vegetation, and I think they would cover them with soil. And what would happen is the nitrate would seep through the edges of these mounds and form crystals. And this guy's job was to walk through the mounds and collect these crystals that they would take in and boil down to concentrate the nitrate, which could be made into gunpowder, or which of course could be used to cure meat. Another source of nitrate is wood smoke. So this is a smoked brisket. You see that pink ring around the outside. Meat has something called myoglobin, which has iron, and it binds oxygen and it turns red. And that is, your blood has hemoglobin, right? The same thing. Muscles hold meat with myoglobin, and the nitrate causes the myoglobin to bind that oxygen more strongly than it normal does. And so the myoglobin doesn't release the oxygen when you cook it, and that is why that meat stays pink, as opposed to the meat in the center, which did not absorb any nitrate because it was too far from the edge, and that releases the oxygen when it cooks and turns gray. This is someone describing ham curing in Virginia in 1775. They would take the hams and rub them with either hickory ashes or saltpeter. So saltpeter is just the salt from the cave that has the nitrate. The hickory ashes are another source of nitrate. So classically, people cured wood with ashes, but they also put them in smokehouses, and they gave them a slow, smoky fire for 3 or 4 weeks. So that meat was it was raw the whole time. It was salted to draw the water out so it didn't rot, but then it sat in that smoke for 3 or 4 weeks without cooking to just slowly absorb more and more nitrate. Nitrate is the first ingredient in fertilizers. Fertilizers are NPK. If you ever buy fertilizer, the N stands for nitrate. And of course, we give it to the plants because that's what plants need to make protein and to grow. And therefore, plants are a very good source of nitrate. So you can see celery has about 2,200 parts per million of nitrate, as opposed to ham. The legal limit of the amount of nitrite, which is the thing that cures the ham, that you can add is 156 parts per million. So that is about 7%. Ham has 7% the added nitrate of the amount found in celery. So are nitrates bad for you? I love articles written by the mainstream press about curing meats and nitrates and whether or not they're dangerous, because they're full of this cognitive dissonance. They really, really, really want to say that cured meats and processed meats are bad because they have nitrate, but they know that the vegetables have way more nitrates, and so they have to live in that confusing world. And so they say, well, they're often associated with cured meats. Green leafy vegetables are actually much richer in nitrates. So that's correct. And then they say studies suggest that eating foods rich in natural nitrates can help reduce your risk of a number of chronic health conditions. Well, that sounds pretty good, right? Nitrates reduce our risk of chronic health conditions. But then it says, whereas eating foods high in added nitrates can cause health risks. So they're making kind of an analogy here about, if you get your sugar from apples, which has vitamin C and polyphenols, it's better than just drinking Coca-Cola, assuming that you eat the same amount of sugar in both cases, right? And so then they go on to talk about why do we cure meat. And it says many processed meats are high in nitrates. While these nitrates are useful for preserving and improving the color of food, they are not good for your health. What these stories always miss is that nitrates are crucial for the flavor of the cured meats, and that is mostly why we use them. I like the pink color of ham, but the reality is ham doesn't taste like ham without nitrite. The nitrite is the thing that makes ham taste like ham. It gives ham that specific hammy flavor. I like pork, grilled pork, roast pork. It's delicious, but it's not ham. The article then goes on to explain why we should avoid nitrates. Nitrates on their own are not broken down by stomach acid. Instead, your gut biome can break down nitrate into nitrite, which can cause health complications such as an increased risk of cancer. Then they immediately say healthy sources of nitrates. Nitrates can be converted into healthy nitric oxide. You don't need to cut out nitrates. Spinach is not just a great addition to salad, but also a great source of natural dietary nitrate. But maybe it's something about the nitrite specifically. Maybe nitrites are bad. But the thing about that is the salivary glands and oral bacteria start converting both nitrate and nitrite to nitric oxide as soon as they hit your saliva. Furthermore, athletes are using nitrate to boost athletic performance. Inorganic nitrate and nitrite are circulating oxidation products from endogenous nitric oxide production. So that means that you have nitrite circulating in your bloodstream and nitrate, and emerging data show that these anions can be recycled back to nitric oxide. So these are natural things that you have in your blood all of the time. And interestingly, this pool, and they mean the nitrate pool, can be supplemented by the diet where green leafy vegetables such as spinach and beetroot are especially rich in inorganic nitrate. Numerous studies now show that administration of nitrate or nitrite has nitric oxide-like bioactivity in animals and humans, including a reduction of blood pressure, protection against ischemia reperfusion injury, that's like a heart attack, and modulation of mitochondrial function. So, administration of nitrite reduces blood pressure, protects against heart attacks, and modulates mitochondrial function. That sounds pretty good, right? This study, this is a nice little pictorial. This guy's drinking some beet juice, and because he's drinking beet juice with all that nitrates, his blood vessels are going to dilate, and that means they're going to get wider. He's going to have better blood flow. He's going to have better mitochondrial function. And at the end, he's going to have improved end sprint performance. So that also sounds pretty good. So why do we think the nitrates are bad? So the issue is that in these prospective studies where they look at people and say, what did you eat? And then they look at, did you get any diseases? There is a correlation between red meats and cured meats with colorectal cancer. And so this guy just read this study, and he's worried that he's dying because he just ate some ham. And this is a study from Iowa. And what it shows is that people who ate the most cured meats were 1.5 times as likely to develop colorectal cancer. So that's an increased risk of about 50% relative risk relative to someone who ate the least amount of bacon and ham. So he's very concerned. But as we add in more studies, This study only showed a 9% increase in risk, and that was actually less than uncured red meat. The red meat showed a 23% risk, and the cured meat was only 9%. And so now he's a little less sure that he's dying because he ate some ham. And then we layered more studies. This study showed no risk at all from cured meat. This study showed a very small risk, only a 10% increased risk. But again, it was less than the risk from just red meat in general. And so you go through these studies and, it's a roller coaster ride. There is some correlation between red meat consumption and cured meat consumption and colorectal cancer. That's clear. But the thing is, we don't know. No study has ever been shown to say, oh, it's definitely because of this component. People are just jumping on nitrate because they're like, well, it's an additive and it's something that we can write news reports about. So what really causes colorectal cancer? This study showed that it is actually polyunsaturated fat metabolism. So polyunsaturated fats, linoleic acid, are found in seed oils such as soybean oil and corn oil, but they're also found in meat because we feed our animals corn and the animals accumulate the corn. And if we take in a lot of linoleic acid and we convert it to something called arachidonic acid, that arachidonic acid gets used in the body to create eicosanoids and all kinds of signaling molecules that often can be used in inflammatory processes. Sometimes they're anti-inflammatory. It's complicated. But if you're doing a lot of this conversion of linoleic acid to arachidonic acid, this study shows that you are 3.5 times as likely to have colorectal cancer. So that is a real correlation, right? 3.5 times as likely, as opposed to a lot of those studies where we're like 10% more, 20% more. This is like boom. And so there's a lot of evidence that polyunsaturated fat metabolism is a core component of colorectal cancer. This study points out that consumption of red meat, a rich source of omega-6 polyunsaturated fats, and that means linoleic acid, increases the risk of colon cancer more than the consumption of fish, which also has animal protein in it, a rich source of omega-3 polyunsaturated fat, as shown in a large epidemiological study. Oxidative metabolism of omega-6 polyunsaturated fat is considered to be necessary to promote colonic carcinogenesis. So you actually, according to this paper, you cannot have colon cancer without converting linoleic acid, omega-6 polyunsaturated fat to arachidonic acid and the downstream products. And again, where does that omega-6 PUFA come from? Well, it's from pigs eating corn, and that fat in that corn gets into the pig. My company, Firebrand Meats, sells pork that is low in these polyunsaturated fats, low in linoleic acid. So my pork is 6% linoleic acid, as opposed to some bacon fat that I rendered from Smithfield and sent in for testing. Their pork is more like 16% linoleic acid. And so I'm making pork that you can cure at home and feel good about the safety of, because the issue is not really the nitrates, it's probably more the polyunsaturated fat content of that meat. How to cure meat the easy way. So we've got everything here that we need to cure a piece of ham, including a piece of ham. You can see here, this is a pork leg fresh ham steak, and this is from my company Firebrand Meats, where we make pork that is low in polyunsaturated fat. This is how the cuts look when you get them. And ham steak is from the back leg of the pig that would normally be made into ham. It's where your hamstring is, right, as part of the ham. And I don't cure these because I have a lot of customers who don't want any nitrates in their meat. But I'm going to show you, if you want to cure them, it's actually quite easy. So this is a smaller one of these. A lot of these are bigger than this, but I picked out a nice petite one for the video. And so you can see it's pretty much a lean cut. It's got some fat along the outside. They're pretty thick, maybe an inch thick. And if you want to make them thinner, You can just get a sharp knife. You can just lay this down if your knife is sharp. If your knife is sharp, and you can just slice right through this. Don't cut into your hand, obviously. And ta-da! We've got two thinner pieces of ham. Some of them are a lot thicker than this. This one was actually pretty thin, but sometimes they're kind of thick. Anyway, so that is that. And so the key here is really just, so this is Morton's Tender Quick. So Morton's Tender Quick, what it is it is a pre-weighed cure. It's got salt and sugar and sodium nitrite, and that is the most important thing, right? The nitrite is what cures the ham and gives the ham its flavor. And so what we're going to do right now, we are going to put the sodium nitrite on. I'm going to put it in this Ziploc bag, and then we're going to put it in the fridge to cure for a couple of hours, and then we're going to come back and cook it, and you'll see. And what I'm going to do is I'm only going to cure one piece, and I'm not going to cure the other piece. And when I cook them up, you'll see the difference. And so I've got my handy kitchen scale. This piece is, that piece is just about 6 ounces. And so you look at your directions, it says you need 1 tablespoon of Tender Quick for each pound of meat. So that means, in this case, a little less than a half a tablespoon of Morton's Tender Quick. So I'm going to weigh this out real quick, or measure this out, I should say. So that's a little under a half tablespoon. And we're just going to sprinkle this on, rub that in. Okay, and this is, you can see there's a few larger pieces, but that's okay. Get that to absorb in, and that is that. We're going to pop this into the Ziploc bag to let it take that on. I'm not going to put both in the bag right now because I don't want that smaller piece to take on the cure. And that is it for now. So the piece with the nitrate cured about 2 hours and 45 minutes. And the one with the nitrate is actually this one here on the left. And so you can see that has turned sort of a dark gray color. That thinner slice on the right, I just dusted with some salt. You can see I've got them cooking in a hot cast iron frying pan. Okay, so it's been about 12 minutes total. The meat is cooked. I'm just going to cut open the two. And we're going to do a little taste test here. I think you can see that. That's pink all the way through, like ham. And this one here is more of a gray color, like pork, right? So you can see the color. But the real thing is the flavor. We'll start with this one. Very good. This ham steak is tender, juicy. Very good flavor. Tastes like very nice pork. This one, also very nice flavor, but it tastes like ham. And that is why we use the nitrate.